the Arizona Cardinals, they have not had a good December, would you say? They have.
I would agree.
To lose to the Lions was one thing. Losing to the Colts, that's more respectable at least. Losing to the Rams, losing the division like they have. Yeah, this is not good as far as if you're Cliff Kingsbury and you're talking about what your next contract is. If they continue to backslide here in December, what are the odds that Cliff Kingsbury gets his contract picked up?
Well, I think he's under contract for another year. I think it's just that he's eligible for an extension after this season. So most coaches don't coach on 1-year deals. It's kind of like an important level of security so that they don't make short-sighted decisions. It's important to give a coach 2 years of job security. And I think at the very least, the Cardinals will extend him 1 year, but Cliff Kingsbury obviously wants a longer term extension. This is a weird purgatory that the Cardinals find themselves in, is with Cliff Kingsbury being up on a contract and still feeling like you don't know the answer of whether he's the right guy for the job or not. It's a really difficult place because it's hard to evaluate teams where we know they have the golden arm child. We know they have the franchise quarterback for a decade, that this rare gift of a young quarterback that you know is going to be your quarterback for the next decade. Because last year, Anthony Lynn's game management was the thing that got him fired, and probably rightfully so. And the Chargers still won 7 games. Like every other coach that got fired was like a bottom 6 team in the NFL. And the Chargers had like the 14 pick in the draft or something last year. So it's always hard to do the evaluations because you know you're going to win the games. It's the same thing like we talked about in the Vikings and Packers game with LaFleur, where LaFleur has won 12 or more games in his first 3 seasons, but we know he also has Aaron Rodgers. So winning 12 games, we know, that makes you a good coach no matter what.
I mean, McCarthy struggled.
Of course, but if you're listing the best 10 coaches in the NFL, you might go like 7 or 8 or 9 before you get to LaFleur. And that's like, we kind of just, it's hard to do these evaluations because we just don't know. We don't have a large enough sample size.
Let's do that real quick. Let's just have a little fun here.
The
Bill
classic
won.
Sports radio.
Yeah. Bill won, right? We're probably unified in that. Okay. Andy Reid too.
Mm-hmm. McVay.
Yeah. McVay has to be up there.
Mike Tomlin.
What do you give Frank Reich? I feel like he's done an excellent job as the Colts head coach.
There's a couple more I'd get to before him, but I'd probably get him right around where LaFleur is. So I would definitely do John Harbaugh. I'd definitely get
John
him
probably
in there.
Get some love there.
I'd get Sean Payton.
Kevin James, good.
Yep, Kevin James, who doesn't look like Sean Payton at all. They just gave him a Saints visor and put him in a documentary or a comedy, whatever it is that they're doing. Is it a movie? Is it a TV show? I don't know.
Pete Carroll is an interesting one, man. Pete Carroll's a tough one.
Pete Carroll's not on great terms, but I think body of work, Pete Carroll's right there with LaFleur. You could kind of pick and choose between those two. I think Pete Carroll is in that legend. Pete Carroll's Pete Carroll body of work, one of the great coaches in the history of the NFL. I don't know if he's on the greatest terms right now.
If we're talking, 2021, Pete Carroll, the decisions he's making, probably different perspective. I would still mark him as a top 10 head coach because now I'm just recognizing the talent deficiencies in Seattle. By the way, they officially got eliminated. So me as a Niners fan, whoop, Seattle eliminated.
Yep. But, well played there. Well played. So I'll put Pete Carroll there. That's 7. Then
Sean McDermott.
I'd go LaFleur then next, and then Frank Reich, and you can go down the list. I feel like I'm forgetting one person, but I can't think of it right now. But
Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians, who's not coaching.
That's what
right
I was
now.
forgetting. Bruce Arians.
Yeah, he's consistent. What he did with the Cardinals, obviously what he did with the Colts, and now what he's doing in Tampa. Yeah, Bruce Arians has earned his spot.
I'd put Bruce Arians, and then you can kind of.
Bruce Arians might be top 5 at that point.
Not over John Harbaugh.
See, now Mike Tomlin's in a tough thing, but I guess you kind of just give, because he can extend his streak of never having a losing season, but we know that the last 3 out of 4 seasons have been just mediocrity, coasting on mediocrity there.
But I think that's more just the players around him than anything else. And I don't know how much I put on Tomlin for that one.
See,
But
here's one thing you have to add into this that kind of makes it a little bit tougher: CEO, head coaches versus actual play callers.
yeah, that's a big part of it too, which is why I'm disappointed in the Raiders for their coaching list at the beginning for similar type reasons. Is the CEO type, like Pete Carroll, one of the great coaches of all time, but he doesn't do any play calling mid game or things of those sorts.
John
To bring it
Harbaugh's
back
the
to
CEO. Yeah.
To bring it back to the Cardinals, I don't know what to do with Cliff Kingsbury because they have the golden arm child. And for the game pick, I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys to win and probably cover. I think it's like 4.5 points in favor of the Cowboys or something like that. I only know because I think I picked that on Take It Easy this week. But I think Arizona's problem more than anything else, because I know as someone who is now more ingrained in the Arizona Cardinals community as producing a podcast for SB Nation, is that a lot of people are kind of looking at this year similarly to last year, where the Cardinals kind of folded at the end of the season and missed the playoffs over the Bears. And that one feels less. I mean, Kyler Murray got hurt last year, but this year I'm looking at it like they just had so many key injuries that took them out of being near the top. Because the whole way, like even when they were undefeated, I'm like, Packers probably still better than them. The Bucks probably still better than them. Rams kind of about the same. And now they've just suffered so many injuries to JJ Watt, DeAndre Hopkins, Max Williams, two of their offensive guards throughout the season so far. It's just been an unfortunate run for them. And by the way, they've had issues with Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons, their last 2 first-round picks, where they're getting benched for some weird reason with the defensive coordinator deciding to put players he had in Philadelphia, like Jordan Hicks and there's another, I think Wagner or something, are playing over them. And it feels like it's all falling apart there for Arizona. And I think it's just going to be too much for them to overcome once push comes to shove and they have to play either the Rams or the Cowboys again in the playoffs as the 5 seed in the NFC.
I could see your cause for hesitancy when it comes to the Cardinals now that they've given you reason to be concerned about them. And certainly with the injuries you mentioned, they are impactful injuries. And I think this goes into what I said last week, where I felt uneasy about picking a team to lose 3 straight games, particularly a team I consider good to lose 3 straight games. I have just as much concern about picking a good team to lose 4 straight games. Then that's why I think I'm going to go with the Cardinals in this one. Because when you just look at the Cowboys and their schedule, they've just been picking apart the also-rans of the conference, of their division. The fact that they're undefeated in their division this year, it just feels like 5-6 easy wins for them at this point. They still have one more game to go against Philly next week, which they might lose because they might have just locked things up and don't care about that game at that point. And that's why I think when I evaluate the Cowboys, I just honestly dismiss the Washington football game on Sunday night. Like I think that you're going against one of the league's worst defenses this year, and you're going against the Giants the previous week. You should blow them out. You blow out the Washington football team the previous week again. You beat the Saints, who would just have an unexciting offense. Then you lose, going back even further, you lose back-to-back games against the Raiders on Thanksgiving, and then you lose that Chiefs game, which was an ugly game and ugly performance there. Hell, just even going further, I mean, they blow out the Falcons. Expected. Get their ass kicked by Denver. Unexpected.
Weird game.
Beat the Vikings. The Vikings all on and off. Cooper Rush game out of nowhere has that big one. Gets a win over the Patriots before the Patriots started becoming really good. Beat up on the Giants again. Beat up on Carolina. Beat up on the Eagles. Win against the Chargers, the Chargers could lose to the Texans. They could lose to Dallas. So I just think that when I look at the schedule for the Cowboys, I'm starting to see the elements of a Fugazi team here, a little bit of a fraudulent paper tiger, as I'm going to call these Cowboys.
But how
here.
Fraudulent do you think the Cowboys are? Fraudulent enough that they're the 5th best team in the NFC?
You have to almost put them behind the Rams in a way, right?
I personally wouldn't, but I understand the argument people would make for that.
See, I haven't done my power rankings yet. They'll probably still be ahead of some teams there when I really kind of sit down and break it down. But when I pick apart this schedule, pick apart some of these wins and compare it to going against the Cardinals here, I think the Cardinals and Kyler still have like one more good game in them this season. I don't think they're going to completely go into the playoffs on just a whimper. And I think this is probably the one game that they'll do it against. Yes, they could beat up on Seattle in week 18. And it's probably, who knows, they might even care in Seattle in week 18 because they might be locked into their playoff spot. But yeah, I think that this is just their chance to just make a statement before the playoffs that, yes, we're still a competitive team. Yes, we still have some dudes on this team. Yes, Kyler's still good, because that's a big thing for Kyler. He has to just say to the world, I'm still good, folks. I'm still going to be that $45 million quarterback. I'm still going to be that dynamic under 6 foot dynamo that you've known me for the entirety of my NFL career. I'm still the Heisman Trophy winner. I'm that next guy. Kyler, Cliff, they're going to have their best game plan just to spite the NFL media that's writing their obituary right now.
The thing I have with the Cowboys, and I've been trying to figure them out for a lot of the season, and they felt like the same team for like 10 weeks or 11 weeks now, so it's hard to find new things about the Cowboys to talk about. But my point with them is that I can't find a flaw with them that makes them not an elite team. So Dallas has a really strong running game, a really strong offensive line, a top 10 quarterback, 2 very strong receivers, a really good pass rush with Leighton Vander Esch and now Micah Parsons, and a secondary that's fine. It's not terrible. It's not as bad as it was the past 3 years, but it's fine. Their linebackers, not great. That's where a team can pick them apart. But I think they're good enough to stay in the game with everyone in the league. They might not win. They'll probably be underdogs against the Packers because the Packers can score at will more so than the Dallas Cowboys can. And the Cowboys get in trouble with punting and game managing and things of these sorts. But they can still stay in the game with anyone in the league. And that's something that I look at and say, only a really good team can do that. The Packers, I think, can beat every team in the league. The Buccaneers, I think, can beat every team in the league. The Chiefs, I know, can beat every team in the league any given Sunday. The Cowboys aren't quite that, but they can stay in the game with everyone. And that's something that makes me think that they're better than, I guess, some people give credit for. I think I'd first take Mina Kimes had them as like the number 2 team, which might have just been for television's sake. But I still think the fact they can stay in it with anyone means they're probably in that group of second round exit teams where they're not quite championship good, but if everything breaks their way, maybe they slip through the cracks and maybe they get to a conference championship and maybe something really weird happens where, you know, I don't know, Aaron Rodgers breaks his foot in the conference championship game or something weird happens like that. But
I would still take Aaron Rodgers with a broken foot against the Cowboys. You know how we've seen this script. We've seen how that book ends.
Cowboys are in that like 5 to 8 group for me. And the Cardinals were in that group, but now I think they've been handed so many injuries that I think the Cardinals are probably a lesser team than the Cowboys, hence the fact that they're 5-point underdogs against the Cowboys. I think it's just for the second straight year, like we were talking about with Baltimore a couple of weeks ago, just really shitty injury luck for the Arizona Cardinals is keeping them from making a potentially deep playoff run.